Hi, my name is Harley. I am an international sales representative for Worldtop Meta Worldwide Logistics.
Hi, I'm Annie. Thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you here. At Worldtop Meta, we're in an exciting phase of growth, expanding our presence across the new regions and working more closely with clients in different markets around the world. Today's conversation is a part of a series where we introduce the people behind that expansion, the individual who works directly with our clients, understand their challenges, and help translate global logistics into something practical and reliable. Before we dive into the market and logistics, let's start with you. How has living and studying in Taiwan shaped the way you view international business and cross-border trade?
The biggest thing about living and studying in Taiwan specifically would probably be that I now understand what a semiconductor is and how important they are for international business, which I guess leads into understanding just how much of a team effort everything we do is, or everything we use is. For example, you may buy a speaker from an American company that was designed in the US and made in Vietnam, but it actually goes a lot deeper than that. They might source the plastic from China, the electronic components from Taiwan, the machine to make the mold from Germany, and so on and so forth. More often than not, international business is not just between two companies. It's a whole lot more complicated. And that's why it's important to understand the global economy as a whole in order to predict and adjust, even if you think at first something won't impact you.
All right, coming from a non-traditional logistics background, what aspect of the industry has surprised you the most since joining us?
I think the most surprising thing has been just how much is shipped around the world at any given time. Before, I had known that international trade was the backbone of the global economy, and I had seen container ships from a distance, so I knew they were big, but I guess I never really thought about what that might look like from the ground. Now I'm talking to companies that are shipping 10 40-foot containers a month, and just conceptualizing how much is in 10 containers is insane. Not to mention that that is just 1 month's worth of inventory. You multiply that by the companies you see every day, some of whom may even be shipping 10 containers a week or 10 containers per day, and you really start to understand why logistics and this industry are so important.
All right, to dive in, we'll talk more about your first impression of the logistics industry. How does working inside a global freight forwarding company differs from how you previously understood global trade?
The biggest difference between reality and what I thought global trade was is that the operations are a lot more complicated than they initially appear. I never really thought about the nitty gritty details about how you go about shipping something until I had to start learning about it here. I thought it was just renting a container, putting your stuff in it, shipping it, and then you had it. Instead, I'm learning about Incoterms, the number of documents you need, like MBLs, HBLs, packing lists, etc., the different types of international laws for products, and so much more. Honestly, it started to make a whole lot more sense why freight forwarding companies exist, because you really do need a whole company in order to organize and figure all this stuff out.
All right, coming from your background, let's dive in more about North American markets insights. From your perspectives, what are the most common logistic challenges faced by North American companies trading with Asia?
I think one of the most common problems I see are communication issues, which can lead to delays or other problems. More often than not, North American companies are using North American freight forwarders, which I believe can cause a game of telephone, where the company will ask something to their freight forwarder, and the freight forwarder will then have to ask their agent in Asia, wait the time difference for response, get the response, and send it back to the company, which is already one step too many. You add in the cultural and communication differences between the two freight forwarders, and things can get lost in the sauce before they even get back to the company.
All right, how do expectations around services, transparencies, and communication differ in the North America markets compared to Asia?
With North American companies, I think there are a couple of key expectations I see the most often. The first would be communication. Tying in with the previous question, North American companies want to be able to communicate succinctly, so they expect timely responses and frequent updates about their cargo and the status of their shipments. The second would be pricing. Sometimes there are companies that want the cheapest price, but I also see companies that want reliable and predictable rates in order to plan their quarterly and yearly budgets. Lastly, kind of combine the previous two, North American companies want clear cost breakdowns. They want to know what they're spending their money on, and they also want to help their own financial teams when it comes to billing and compliance. Overall, if I was going to summarize all that into one word, in comparison to the Asian market, North American companies have higher expectations when it comes to transparency.
What type of North American business do you see most actively seeking logistics partners in Taiwan today?
In my experience, most of the companies I'm in conversation with are either manufacturing companies looking for supplies or components, or they're companies that are known to manufacture in East and Southeast Asia, like furniture, clothing, and others like that. Additionally, because Taiwan is a connecting hub for all of Asia, we don't just see companies that are looking for goods in just East or just Southeast Asia. Taiwan is a good place to source your freight forwarder, whether you are exporting from Japan, China, Vietnam, Indonesia, or any other country in the region.
All right. Moving forward, we'll talk more about cultural and communication perspectives. How does your cross-cultural background help bridge expectations between North American clients and Asian logistics operations?
Going back to my previous answer about freight forwarding being a game of telephone, I think my position cuts down on that immensely. If a North American client has a question, I'm able to relay it to our operations team and get an answer back immediately, which I can then send while the conversation is fresh in mind, and the North American client will see when they get into office. I basically become the cultural and communication translator between the two if either side ever needs clarification, as I've lived in Taiwan long enough to understand some aspects. And as an American, I also know the questions to ask my operations team that the North American companies will want before they even have to ask.
All right. What sort of misunderstandings do North American clients most often have about Asian supply chains?
At the moment, I think the biggest misunderstanding would probably have to be North American companies don't understand how big of an impact Chinese New Year has in Asia, which makes sense. It's not that big of a thing over there. But to put it into context, an American context, it would be like rolling Thanksgiving and Christmas into one holiday that takes place over the course of a week, which basically means that there is a week-long dead zone where Asian factories and companies just aren't working. Actually, more than a week for some Chinese factories, as they decided to take the whole month of February off to allow their workers time to get home if they live far away. However, if a company forgot about the break and didn't front load their previous shipment, it could mean they run out of inventory before the break ends, which sucks. Which is why I think it's important to understand the culture of the country you're working with in order to predict if there's ever time you think will be chill, but actually it isn't, which is something we can help with considering we are over here. We've actually been warning both our clients and potential clients since Christmas ended about Chinese New Year. And the ship out dates, if they have any last minute shipments they need to get out before the holiday.
Looking ahead, what excites you most about the long-term potential of North American markets for Worldtop Meta?
I think what excites me the most would be that a lot of North American companies have this kind of loyalty that creates a long lasting relationship where we can grow alongside the companies we partner with. More often than not, I get rejected in calls because they say that they've been working with the same freight forwarder for 15, 20 years. And that's what I hope to grow with Worldtop Meta in North America. Long-lasting relationships that are built on quality of service rather than the cheapest price. In my opinion, I would rather be known as the company that is a little bit more expensive, but has a superior service where we actually care about your company and what you're shipping, rather than the cheapest price where service that frustrates and creates problems that you never want to use again.
Last but not least, if you could give one piece of advice to North American companies entering Asia-focused supply chains, what would it be?
Pick us to help you. But seriously, it would be to understand just how much is changing in the region. So many manufacturers are shipping to Southeast Asia to chase the lowest cost, but shipping hasn't caught up yet. The ports in Southeast Asia aren't deep enough or big enough to keep up with that kind of cargo. So I think if you're switching to an Asia-focused supply chain, that's a conversation you need to have. Whether you'll do the same and wait for the Southeast Asian ports to adjust, or keep to the Chinese companies, which have robust shipping ports that are able to handle your cargo. And that's not even getting into all the other things that are impacting global logistics, like the Suez Canal potentially opening up, the tariffs, global warming, and so much more.
Thank you for sharing your perspective today. Conversations like this are important to us, not to just talk about markets, but also to show how much thoughts and cares goes into supporting our clients across region. We appreciate you taking your time, and we look forward to continue working with you.